a journey down the rabbit hole of rock and roll's past, present, and future. It's Barstool Rockers with your hosts, Jim Finn and Dan Michaels.
Turn off your minds, relax, and float downstream.
It's just a boat on the water, living on borrowed time.
Come sail away with us. Don't be fooling yourself.
Okay. Yes, you're such a renegade.
Look, if we continue this, we'll be picking up pieces of 8.
Thank you. You know, there's a place up north about an hour that's called Pizzas of 8.
Yes. Well, that may be where we need to go tonight.
Well, if not, you're just going to leave me saying, why me?
At some point,
but never say never.
We'll be gone. This could go on forever.
It'll be like the first time.
Superstars.
Where's Eddie? Anyway, yes, today, if you haven't figured it out by all these Styx song references, we are going to be talking to
Lawrence Gowan.
Good day, eh? Is it a
you
bad...
can say that if you like, because I speak Canadian. It's similar to American, but it's a little frostier.
I didn't know if that was a bad joke or not, but I figured, what the hell.
So now, are you you're in California now, right?
We actually were down here about a month, maybe about 6 weeks ago. We played in Redding, California, and they had been devastated by horrible fires just a couple of weeks before we got there. And oh my God, it was horrible. But the people were spectacular. They wanted a rock show despite their hardships, and and Styx delivered.
Well, that's the healing power of music. Maybe that's exactly what they needed was some Styx music,
I have absolutely no cynicism at all, or any doubt left in me that music has unbelievable powers that we kind of sensed, in our youth, but I think we really see the benefits of it the longer we live, as long as we stay engaged with it every day and kind of let it do its thing. It just enriches your life in so many ways. And I just have never had an example of where it's let me down.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, just to pinpoint Styx, I can remember sitting at home back in Iowa in this little house that I was amazed still stood sometimes, and pulling out Cornerstone and putting it on there, or even the most hated album by some of the people in the band, Kilroy. The first time hearing a lot of those songs, it just takes me back to those moments. I think it just takes people in general back to a simpler time in their life, and they form fond memories with it.
And who doesn't need a little bit of that,
we need a whole lot of that.
Yeah.
We need a whole lot of that. And that's really, we see that on a nightly basis. I've been in the band now, I'm in my 20th year, and I've seen it year after year, night after night, where sentiments such as you guys have just expressed there are obviously written on people's faces as they see the band and let it unfold. And really, to add to that, just as kind of the cherry on top, is half the audience now that we play to are under 30 years of age and weren't even born when some of the biggest classic rock records and the biggest Styx records are made, and yet they relate to them as if it's part of it's concurrent with their own lives. And to see that, it's just, it just underscores how, believe it or not, how vital that classic rock era was to the last half of the 20th century, and how far-reaching the effects of it have been.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be really cool for you guys to see this music passed down through generation after generation.
Yes, it certainly is, and it's not lost on any member of the band either. I love that. It's Tommy J. White, Chuck, they drink it in just as deeply as Todd, Ricky, and myself, who are the quote unquote new members who've only been in it for nearly a quarter century. Yeah.
Now, talking about being a new guy, you've made your role. I mean, you've made it yours and you've owned it. But when you were first in there, what was the biggest challenge when it came to taking the place of DeYoung?
Well, the first thing was, it's funny how I remember looking at Genesis and thinking about Phil Collins moving to the front of the band, and I didn't even know the drummer's name at that point.
Right.
But I really kind of, it's unfair in some ways that we naturally just say, oh, look, Phil Collins took Peter Gabriel's place. He didn't take his place.
Right.
It's just the band changed.
Changed, yeah.
He took on a role, right? And really, that's how I look at the history of Styx. Is, when Tommy Shaw joined after the fifth album, after Equinox,
uh-huh.
I think it's not really as accurate. It's easy to say that he replaced John Strelewski, but not truly. That's not what happened. The band just kind of morphed into this other thing, and life went on. And when I joined the band, there was never any inference or any sort of a suggestion that I try to emulate or copy or do anything other than play the songs as sincerely and as engage with them as strongly as I can, given my own talents, I guess. And that's held the same all the way until today. So really, it really is. It's tough when, to the public's eye, it's very tough when a pivotal member is suddenly not on stage with the band. It's a tough transition for people to make, and I understand that because I've gone through it with the bands that I love. But I think that that's part of, that really the challenge was basically just letting people who perhaps were doubtful that the band could go on, basically trying to placate their expectations and come up with something that was kind of new and novel, and at the same time, venerated their legacy.
I think it harkens back to that nostalgia thing we were just talking about. The music is nostalgic, and even the people up there, the fans bond with them in a way.
They do. That never changes.
Let me ask you this. So before you joined the band, you were already an extremely successful solo musician on your own. Great success in Canada. How did that transition go from being a successful solo artist into joining a legendary rock band? Was it a smooth transition, or was it a learning curve?
I'm going to say it was a learning curve because my solo career, unfortunately, people in the United States were never really exposed to my records, but they did do really well. I've got multi-platinum albums, and actually a single of mine recently finally went platinum after all these years, so they continue to do well. But when you're a solo artist, you really are, you're so used to having the bottom line be your final decision has to be, on everything. I just did a couple of solo shows, same venues that we play with Styx in Canada, and it's getting more and more seamless and effortless to jump back and forth between one incarnation and the other. I know my role in the band, and I know my role in my real life and in my solo life, my real life. They're both real.
It's not the grand illusion. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Dude, where's the rim shot cart? Now I was just bouncing around doing some dusting up on my Lawrence Gowan history here. And on your website under biography, it says the life and times of Lawrence Gowan in a nutshell. And then it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
What part you're so accomplished on your own prior to your life in Styx. Yeah. What made you decide to leave that career alone, where it just seemed like more of a challenge and more fulfilling for you?
Well, in a nutshell, one gigantic nutshell. It's a bit of a long answer there, but James. But honestly, I'd always kind of yearned for the feeling of being in a band. I love being a solo artist, but most of the music I love is by bands. I love more bands than I do solo artists. So it's an odd thing that I wanted that dynamic to understand how that works. How there's something greater than the sum of the parts, and that is the spirit of what a band is. And I was in England actually in 1998, and the publicist I had there said, I'm getting calls from bands that basically need new people. She said, I'm doing a tour with Brian May next year. He's looking for someone that can sing. This is back in the 90s, before they figured out what to do. he's looking for someone that can sing, some Freddie parts, and there's also a band here. There was a band in Scotland that she mentioned at the time. She said, it's just highly likely that you're going to join a band. And I thought, that's crazy because I'm a solo guy and now I always will be. But it's amazing when the universe suddenly taps you on the shoulder and goes, yeah, never mind what you think. There are other opportunities here if you just don't, play a hard line, just listen to what things, what's being offered. And when I came home after that trip, I got a call from Styx, and I thought, when I opened for the band in '97, I thought, God, there's something really simpatico about how I feel about music and how this band's performance is. And it was the first time that I'd ever seen Styx live. And I just thought, and after that show, Tommy Shaw said to me, we're going to work together in the future. This worked out great. This was just with me opening the shows. And in '99, so 2 years later, when he called, it didn't feel completely out of sorts. It didn't feel like this is a bizarre thing. It felt like, yeah, I think this has happened to other bands have had to go through this type of transition. And I think, if they think I can do it, then maybe I can.
Well, and here we are now. And like you said, you've been with the band since about '99. And the latest Styx album is out. It's called The Mission. It's been out for a while now.
Yeah.
And the first single off the album was Gone, Gone, Gone. Of course, you do the lead vocals on that one. Actually, your imprint is all over this album, which is really cool. Really enjoy your contribution to the band on this album.
Thanks.
Now, when you guys started working on The Mission, going into it, did you know from the outset that it was going to be a concept album, that there was a theme there, or did it just kind of organically evolve into that?
It began with two songs. Mission to Mars was the first song that was kind of presented, so to speak. Tommy played it to me off his phone on the bus. And then our producer, the guy that eventually became our producer, who was a musical partner with Tommy in the Shaw Blades project, he had another song that he'd begun, and we realized, there's definitely a connection between these two pieces, Locomotive and Mission to Mars. And, right from the outset, shortly thereafter, we got a call from NASA, who had discovered a fifth moon around Pluto and decided to name it Styx, and we were there to witness the arrival of this spacecraft. This is real life now, not fantasy, actually.
That's very cool.
It was astounding. It was really astounding. I mean, as I say it, I think, was that an episode of Star Trek? That actually did happen. And, we knew that something with a space theme made a lot of sense. And since, we wanted it to be, somewhere rooted in reality, we thought, okay, so the Mission to Mars is a great idea, and then eventually we'll tie in the idea of Pluto and going by Styx and add a little fantasy element in there. But really, the songs had to be about the human interaction, the exchange of the drama that unfolds between this crew, and of course, you can easily draw quick analogies between that and the life of a band. And so, the lyrics took on for me anyway, a lot of subtle double entendre and it was easy to relate to them. You don't have to be an astronaut to understand what a lot of the songs are getting at. And that's really where we decided, let's keep it a concept, but let's keep it that it's not too heavy-handed with the concept, and that the songs can be taken individually and personalized, like all the great songs, with Styx in the past. Whether Grand Illusion to me is a concept record, but no one in the band can really describe exactly what the concept is. It's got this great loose feel to it that allows people to kind of put themselves in the picture, and that's what we wanted to do with the Mission.
There does tend to be a lot of imagine what if going on in the Styx music. So, as a fellow Canadian says, life is just a fantasy. I had to try to get one in
there
today.
You go.
Grand Illusion. I went for Aldo Nova.
Okay.
So
Never argue with the wisdom of Aldo.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up, when was that moment when you decided you were going to pursue a career in music?
Honestly, probably the same as millions of other guys in North America anyway. It was February the 9th, 1964, when Ed Sullivan brought the brought the Beatles on stage, and I remember my parents, because I'm from Scotland originally, we're British, and my parents were like, "Oh," my mom would say, "Oh, there's going to be an act on from Liverpool. That's very close to Glasgow." And
I love your imitation.
They
I
didn't
love
know.
that.
That's so like my mom. You'd be really impressed if you actually spoke to her. Anyway, we're getting all set for it, and I remember they're into "Close Your Eyes." Yeah, "All My Love." And my dad, about 20 seconds in, he goes, "What the hell is this?" And I remember, I was 7 years old. I remember at that moment thinking, I don't know what the hell it is, but this is what I want to do, whatever this is. And I mean, millions of other musicians, I think I've heard Billy Joel tell a similar story. It just affected our whole generation to such a degree that one performance just made you look at life a whole different way. And if you were lucky enough, and if you bugged your parents enough to get you a guitar, there was a slim chance that you might be able to do it.
Did you start with guitar? Was that your first instrument? Okay.
Yes, I did. I played guitar for a couple of years, and then my mom, I'll give you another impression again. She said to me one day when I was about 10, I was playing her a song. She said, "That's nice, but a real instrument is the piano." A real instrument.
Oh, jeez.
We're back to real again. And I thought, okay. Well, I said, we don't have any pianos lying around the house, so how am I going to learn that? Smart ass. And I got piano lessons, and then basically in high school, and this happens with musicians, the instrument kind of chooses you. There was a band that I played guitar in, they never got booked. And then there was a band that I played the keyboards in, and they always got booked. So I was, I guess I'm a piano player.
Have you ever worn a kilt on stage?
Oh gosh.
Just 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yes. I mean, listen, you got to give people a show as well as play the song.
Well,
sometimes they get too much show.
Well, did you have underwear on? That's the biggest question. So
I don't remember.
Well, you've got these.
Ask your roadie.
You've got these California dates that you're embroiled in now, but I know that we have a show in our neck of the woods, which is coming up in December at Treasure Island.
Oh, Claire.
But So, I mean, so here's the deal. Of course, you'll be prepped for the cold weather, but I don't know about the rest of the Styx guys. So you might have to let them borrow some of your wardrobe because you might have to let them borrow a parka or something because I don't know if they're going to be able to handle it.
I know. It's funny because most of the guys live down south. JY and I are the only two real northerners still. JY still in Chicago, and I live in Toronto. So we're always ready. But there was actually one time we were playing in Canada, and one of the fellas in the band, not JY or myself, actually showed up it was in December, and he showed up with no coat. I thought, what were you thinking? Anyway, yes, we have to go over the wardrobe before we show up in the neck of the woods in November.
So you've toured with Boston, REO 38 Special, Def Leppard, just a huge list. Who was your favorites, and who would be the ultimate band for you for Styx to tour with?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me. I don't want to pick favorites because we really enjoy touring with all the bands. I mean, Def Leppard and us, we get along particularly well. Same with REO, But, it's always, I mean, Joan Jett this summer was fantastic. What a great touring partner she was. So we enjoy that. For myself, I noticed, for example, Elton is says he's on his last round. I mean, I'd love to be on stage, share a stage with him or to open for Elton or McCartney or the Stones. There's all those people that I loved growing up who are still out there doing it. Any one of them I'd love to be on tour with.
Okay, here's one of those. If you could be a twee, what kind of twee would you be? Questions, but okay, let's say there was a concert in Canada, Styx and Gowan. Yeah. Who would headline?
Oh, man. It would be Styx.
You think so?
Well, it has to be. Styx has the international career, and my career is very much relegated to Canada and a little bit in England. But
but you're huge up there. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, but there's 5 of them. There's only one of me.
Okay.
And yeah, 6 of them actually.
No, strength in numbers.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, back in '85, you put out your Strange Animal solo album.
Yeah.
You had a chance to work with both Tony Levin and Jerry Marotta from Peter Gabriel's band. That had to be incredible.
I was at a Gabriel concert in 1984, and I remarked to the lady who was with me at the show, I said, I've got these new songs, and unless players like that play on them, they're not going to be done right. Mm-hmm. And about 6 months later, amazingly, 6 months later, I was in the studio with those exact guys, and they because I'd sent a demo to the guy that was doing sound for Gabriel, and he played it for them, and the next thing you know, we were all in studio together, and to add just one more amazing bit to that story, we wound up recording it at a place called Tittenhurst Park, where Ringo Starr was living at the time, and so Ringo was living there and coming in the studio, every other day with great words of encouragement and inspiration. And prior to Ringo living there, it was John Lennon's house. That's where John recorded Imagine. So on Strange Animal, the instruments and a lot of the microphones, a lot of the same gear that was used on Imagine is on that record, along with Gabriel's backing band of that era, and it's a phenomenal experience. Again, it's just my life's been very fortunate.
Now you guys are out. You're out now. You wrap up next weekend. There's a couple dates in October, a handful in December. And what's 2019? Is it more Styx, or is it going to be?
Yeah, more Styx. We had I'm doing a solo run of about 10 shows in February, all in Canada. But there's a lot. I mean, we've got 80 shows plus actually on the books right now for 2019. And there's an insatiable demand to see the band. There really is. It just doesn't go away, and we don't want it to, and we're happy to try to meet that demand. So, we'll play, I think we'll round out 2018 with about 80 plus shows, and we'll probably play a similar number next year. At least that's what's on the horizon at this point.
Cool. Now, do you continue songwriting as you're out on the road then? I mean,
always. Yes. There's always new ideas, always fresh things that are coming up. Today we're going to run a couple more songs off the Mission in our sound check, because we begin to plug more of those into the live show. But there's also, there'll be some little jam or something that'll come along, and it'll just kind of go in the bank, and hopefully if we get another chance to go in the studio and make another studio album, it'll rise again.
Well, we really love this one. Dude, you are a busy guy. Do you ever have a chance to relax?
This is really how I relax. If I'm not playing, but we had a couple of weeks off there. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm really at a point in my life now where I'm only good at one thing. But luckily that one thing, makes me happy and a lot of people happy. So I really look at this as all, a very enjoyable ride. And, I used to play hockey a lot. It's mandatory under the Canadian government. But
still practicing magic?
I was doing a little bit of that. Not as good as I once was, but I got into that for a little bit. But no, I just, before I called you guys, I did my yoga routine and got ready for the show tonight, and I feel good, and I feel like I'm 15 years old when I walk on stage, and the next morning I feel like I'm actually my age. And that's really every day, and I just enjoy it. I want to keep doing this as long as possible, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
We're looking forward to it. The latest album from Styx is The Mission. Of course, now it's out in 5.1. So for the audio nerds like us, we can hear it in all its pristine beauty. Lawrence Gowan with Styx, thank you so much for calling us today. And have a great show tonight. And we'll see you in December at Treasure Island.
It's going to be fantastic.
You know what? We continue to have good luck with the musicians that we talk to with our interviews because nobody.
No, they've all been great.
Jerk yet.
Everybody's been great.
Awesome.
You get plenty of jerks in this business doing this, but and we haven't even done an interview and not posted it because the guy was a jerk. That's the best part. So, no, Lawrence Gowan, and he's just a nice guy. The everything I've read about him says he's just a wonderful person. So it's really great to talk to somebody like that.
Yeah, it was good to get the perspective, too, from his early days as a solo artist and life in Canada before hooking up with Styx. So that was really insightful. So there ends another Barstool Rockers episode, but we are going to be returning very soon with just a chat between you and I.
Yeah, hopefully. There's plenty of news going on out there, so I think it's about time for one of those. We're just not really doing these if there's not something concrete to talk about, rather than just getting on here and I don't know, wasting bits and bytes constantly. Plus, let's face it, both of us have a busy day here, so definitely doesn't...
give us enough free time to actually sit down and chat.
With a beer. I'm looking for a Rolling Rock neon for the room or something. I have to get up to speed with your lava lamps and the corner lamp, the torch over here, and you got the desk lamp over there, and the picture of Uncle Alice, of course.
Well, we had to represent Alice. That had to be in here. But, it's not wall-to-wall Cheap Trick yet.
No,
so
that's a plus.
That day is coming, though.
But Xander is going to be nearby, a couple hours away, for 3 nights with the family doing a very un-Cheap Trick show. So
again, this is, I don't know how many years in a row now, but yeah, it's coming up in January at Monk's, Lake Delton, and phenomenal. Yeah, they've added another night this year, so 3 nights of Rob and Xander, friends and family fun. Looking forward to it.
So are we going to be setting you up remotely to do your day show? Or
we talked about that the last time. We really should figure that out. I'm down with that.
We'll have to figure out a way to do it and maybe get some custom music made for the experience. Yes. Speaking of music, thanks to our friend Anastasia for all her work on doing the music for the show. And thanks to everybody who's been supporting and listening. We do want to remind you can subscribe via the iHeartRadio app. You can also subscribe on Spotify or iTunes. The website is barstoolrockers.com, and you can connect with us there, or you can connect with us at our radio station website, too, which is rock921.com.
And he taught me that Styx was one of the greatest American rock bands.